A very good afternoon to everyone. This is day 3 of AKLF 2021, and we have the most amazing session coming up next, the Midas Touch. What makes mythologies tick in this country? We have the bestseller writers, Anand Neelakantan with us. We have Kevin Missal, and in conversation with them is Preeti Vyas, the CEO of all of our favorite Amar Chitrakatha. We are sorry that Mr. Banker could not be here for the session due to some personal reasons, but I'm sure he will enjoy the conversation that follows next. I hope all of you do so as well. I know none of these guys require an introduction per se, but I'll still do my little bit and do that. Anand Neelakantan, as we all know, is the writer of the famous Bahubali series, and his most recent book, Shivagami, is already making waves in the market. Along with him, we have Kevin Missal, who is the teenage favorite, and with his Hiranyakashyap, he is riding the popularity storm. And along with that, we have, as I already pointed, Preeti Vyas, who is the CEO of the ever-favorite Amar Chitrakatha. So off to you, Preeti, to take this wonderful conversation ahead.
So hello, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this panel discussion. A very warm welcome to Kevin and Anand for joining us at the AKLF session. We're doing it online. Unfortunately, we couldn't all be in Kolkata on that stage together. So maybe next time. Yeah. So very warm welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
I'm obviously publishers of mythology. So that's the common link that brings us all here together. The topic of our panel is what makes mythology stick. So let's jump right into it, because I've been told we have exactly 40 minutes and I have like 14 questions in front of me. So I want to get right into it. So let's start with the obvious one, the title of the session, what makes mythology stick? And the question is for both of you that, what is the attraction to mythology as a genre in 2021? What is the role of mythology in modern storytelling?
So, Sir, you should take it forward.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Preeti. I think the term mythology itself in Indian context is not an exact term. For want of any other term in English, we are using it. These are all living tradition in the sense they keep changing. New books new stories, new interpretations keep coming. Every century it has come, and that is what it makes it stick. It gets changed. If you see Ramayana, I think there are more than 500, 600 versions, even though A.K. Ramanujan talks about 300. I have encountered many of the snippets of that which are not in A.K. Ramanujan's book also, because mostly in the south, which I know as folk tales and all. So this is a evolving thing, and that is what it makes it relevant.
I think it's the ultimate open source, right? Ultimate open source software, like anybody can plug in and understand the code and then write their own.
So that is also every time authors or the poets, dramatists, filmmakers, whoever it is, they come and make it relevant for that era. That is why it is last 4,000, 5,000 years, it's sticking across Asia, not only in India.
Right. Kevin, what's your take on it?
I also totally agree with Anand sir. I think one of the most important, when I started writing mythology, one of the most important things that I realized was that mythology in its sense has all the characteristics that connects us to the art of storytelling. You have the best of heroes and the best of villains out there. You have the best of loyalties and the best of heartbreaks as well. You have the greatest of romances and the worst of romances. So I think I feel that these are the classic storytelling kind of
the hooks and the anchors, right?
I mean, this is the foundation of what we are now even seeing. Even the best of stories, from Star Wars to Star Trek to everything. I mean, they follow a kind of storytelling that they have seen in the ancient epics.
That's true.
So, and I think that's why it sticks even now, and it will down the road stick for the next 100 years. Because the thing is, and more so, because it has all those ingredients that connects us to, in all and makes us collectively strong.
Yeah, and I think the good storytelling, it never gets boring and it never gets old, right? It has a timeless value to it, and I absolutely agree with you. So in fact, the next question, Kevin, was for you. That you are one of the youngest authors in today's publishing scene to write mythology. You started when you were only 14, right? So that's really quite commendable. I was telling my son about you today that he's 14, yeah, started writing at 14, and what are you doing? Like Indian moms, right? We always have a looking for.
Basically, Sharma ji ka beta right now.
Right. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want, and I believe that your readership also is very young.
Yeah.
So take us into the mind of a young reader. What draws her to mythology and to mythological fiction as well?
I think what worked for me, to be really honest, is the fact that I think I just made it like really action packed, really bloody, really over the top, and everything very dramatic. And I think that worked a lot for them, as well as I try to make a lot of things subtle as well, because I feel that we should not belittle the younger generation. I think they understand storytelling more than us. I always say that, and I think they know that what works for them and what doesn't. So I also made it very mature. So I didn't try to like dumb it down for my young readers. So I think that's where the win kind of happened, because when you don't dumb it down, they immediately feel respected.
Right.
By the author, like this guy knows us.
Correct.
So I think that worked for me, to be honest, for the young generation.
And I think today's generation, anyway, they are exposed to so much more in terms of content,
Exactly.
What they're consuming on the internet, on OTT, in books. So they are more evolved as well in that sense. Like if I compare myself at 11 to my son at 11, there's a vast difference. So I think it's very important to kind of, and I think you've done that very well, to clue into their world and their sensibility. Right. So that's a follow-up question to you, Anand. That your latest book talks about naughty asuras, and even your retelling of the Ramayana is titled Asura, Tale of the Vanquished. So what is it about these obviously flawed individuals that make it an interesting read for you?
My latest book actually is the Bahubali series, the last one, Queen of Maheshmati.
Okay.
Came last month. Before that, Asura Kids had come. Last year I had 3 books actually.
Right.
Bahubali book 2, then this, and Bahubali book 3.
Wow, congratulations. That's quite getting quite prolific.
What I did was I came very late into this. In the sense that at the age of 14, when Kevin published, I could not have spoken 2 words in English. I came to English itself at the age of 16. Reading, writing English and all. So for me, but I grew, one advantage I had was I grew up in such a place that this is a part and parcel of my life, the entire growing up. And Kerala as such has a tradition of countertelling.
Absolutely.
Not the only thing what I did was I did it in English. But this kind of countertelling is quite common in Kerala and also in Tamil Nadu, even in 40s, 50s, 60s. Dramas used to be there. Even 17th century, there used to be classical art forms like Ottantullal, Kathakali and all, where Karna and Ravan, all those characters have been taken.
Right.
So I came from that tradition, and since I shifted to English, later at the 2012 only my first book was published. So I started writing in English at the age of something around, now I'm 47. So around 10 years back, I would have started 10, 12 years back. Asura initially started in Malayalam, then shifted to English. So for me, the fundamental thing was I wanted to show the world, or at least the rest of the country, that there is such a tradition existing. When the kind of Ramayana which we are used to, multiple versions from different angles, different versions, that I think owes it to a very, because of historical reasons, owes it to a very confident tradition. When what happens is, when the Gangetic Plain went into, the invasions happened in Gangetic Plain, the kind of storytelling also changed. It became good versus evil story, Ravan the hen, all those things. Whereas in the south, there is no, it's more confident the way story. So questioning of the tradition is more. So there is no good versus evil story. It is rather to the older, purer format where it is about dharma, it is about karma and the karmavala, action and the fruits of action.
Right.
So that's I thought I should write that, and that is how that connected well with the audience when I wrote it from the other side of
Right.
Ramayana or Mahabharata, from the Ajaya series, from Duryodhana's Mahabharata, and all those things.
And I think that what matters is getting the reader to think and have his own perspective, asking questions rather than declaring that this is exactly what it is and this is right and this is wrong and this is good and this is bad. Leaving those question marks is what makes the narrative very interesting, right? And
Indian tradition doesn't have the
that traditional structure
good
of
versus bad
absolutely.
tradition at all.
And
So it's
how is it when you're talking of, like, when you're, for example, I know your Netflix, there's a Netflix web series being planned, which is going to be on a very, very grand scale. So how do those adaptations work? Like, how does mythology cut across the different channels and different
Netflix, it is
formats?
Bahubali, which has a lot of influence from Indian Puranas. But Netflix, what adaptation which is happening is for my Bahubali trilogy, which is becoming like a big. That is what shooting and other things are happening. But otherwise, I worked quite a lot in television also. The television serials like Siya Ke Ram, Mahabali Hanuman, Chakravarti Ashoka. So I have written more of screenplays than books.
I see. Okay.
Almost 500 hours of screenplay I would have written for the major television. These were all hit series like Chakravarti Ashoka, or which Ashok Banger started and I continued actually.
Right.
Then Siya Ke Ram I had started, then Mahabali Hanuman and all those things.
Right.
Screen adaptation, I went the conventional way. Books, I went the unconventional way. That's
right. So, which brings me to the next question, that again, talking about selling mythology in 2021, what is the kind of marketing that's required? How do you, because we're living in a world with a lot of social media, there's, you need to make yourself, really known, you need to make your book really well known. And is there anything specific that you would like to share, or any insights specifically related to mythology and marketing of mythology to Indian audiences as well as global audiences?
I wish my social media presence is very small. I am not somebody who spends a lot of time. I have hardly very less number of followers. I am not concentrated much on social media. My books mostly have been through word of mouth, basically. You see. I have hardly around 8,000 followers in Insta. That too recently only I joined, and Twitter around 10k followers. Not even 10% of how much my books have been sold.
Right.
If we take that. So social media has not been my forte. I know it has to be done, and you have to do a lot on that and other things, but it has not. For me, it never. Maybe I came late.
So for you, marketing it really just comes down to good writing and word of mouth and banking on that.
Mainly, it has worked on word of mouth, and I was fortunate enough that a lot of my writing, mostly the director said is visual. So I was noticed by a lot of countries' good directors and actors. So that helped me a lot. When the first book came, the South superstar Nagarjuna, he had launched my next two books. Rajamouli read Asura and he called me to write Bahubali.
Right.
So television, they read my book and then called me to write the television shows, because writing is visual. So for me, it worked that way. That
I think for you, in your case, the fact that you're able to go across and cut across different formats and different channels just makes the appeal so much wider.
It is more of my writing is visual, so I have adapted to visual storytelling. That is screenplay. So I have written more of screenplays now.
Right.
Although 9 books I have written so far, 8 in English, 1 in Malayalam. I have written more than 500 hours of screenplay, and more of films, more of things which are coming are also on screenplay as films in different languages, shows and all.
Right. What about you, Kevin? What do you think is a way to market mythology to today's generation of readers?
I don't know if you guys know, but I started my own marketing agency for authors and publishers and writers and everything. I mean, we do campaigns, we do different author brandings stuff and everything. So I feel that with mythology, you have to treat it the way it is. I mean, you can't try to oversell it. You can't try to show it as it's the right it's the right kind of a thing, right? It's fiction at the end of the day. We are just trying to bring the best of different things that we read, and then we bring it together in one particular book.
Right.
So I think I think basically being true on social media, basically being true on in your marketing, in your content marketing, and everything. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's basically being true to what you want to show. And of course, what has worked for me, especially when marketing mythology, because I have marketed a lot. I mean, unlike Mr. Anand sir, I don't think so. I don't have the right kind of a visual style, I would say, when it comes to writing. So I have to try really harder than usually. I mean, in fact, my one of my exes had even said, like, I'm a bigger fan of Anand Neelakantan than you. And I mean, so,
ouch.
yeah, well, so because he just made me cry, Rajaya. I mean, you have never made me cry.
I'm sure there's ways to make her cry. I'm sure you could have figured that out.
Yeah, well,
That was the intent.
I wish I was 20 years younger.
so I was just very so I think for me it worked is obviously AMS, content marketing. It's about as well as doing a lot of offline marketing as well for myself, and try to just show my book everywhere. Because as a young writer, as a writer who's just rising and who's trying to rise, I mean, you need to try a lot.
Absolutely.
And what I've seen with books is that what really matters more than marketing is the temperament of the entire industry, right? I mean, where it is exactly, right? I mean, when I came, what happened was that time the mythology had gone really stale, and not a lot of mythology was selling that time. So to actually make it big during that time was a really tough task, because everyone was bored of mythology by then,
Right.
But now again it's picking up. So it's like a thing. So I think I found the right the right temperament is important, right content is important when you're putting it out, and basically being true to yourself. I think these are three major things.
Is there any anecdotes or any intelligence on what does it take to sell Indian mythology to a global audience? Because a lot of our books are all being translated in multiple languages. I was reading that Ashok Banker's books are in 16 languages in 58 countries. So
I tried to sell one of my books to a Chinese band, and he was very sweet about it. But what I did was I'm a bit of a loafer when it comes to these things. But like what I did was I was like, oh, it has a lot of mysticism and spirituality, and you can learn a lot of stuff from it. And he just bought it. He's like, oh, great, spirituality. So I think because outside
that's not a lie, right? All Indian story. I mean, you're talking of mythology, it will definitely have a generous dose of spirituality. Yeah.
So I think that worked for me. I don't know about Anand sir.
For me, the books are gone in Indonesian, Asura, Ajaya. All the first three books are gone to Indonesia, doing very well there. Simhali's Asura is coming out. Other than that, all 14 languages in India, Asura and Ajaya come out. Vanara is coming out now. Bahubali 1 had come out. 2 and 3 will be coming out soon. Only children's book, I think only 1 or 2 languages it may come out. I don't know as of now, because it's only 2-3 months. And children's book, every language should have its own style. You cannot translate it as such.
But maybe some international languages that might get some appeal, because it's a totally different milieu and a totally different context, which will be very interesting for kids around the world. And there is a lot of...
You have to help me then.
Definitely. Done.
Well, I don't have that kind of exposure.
Right. So my next question is again to both of you. History, mythology, mythological fiction, where do these lines get blurred? How important is authenticity? How important is research to the reader? And really the question is, what is authentic when it comes to mythology? Is there something called authentic?
I think Anand sir can explain the best, I feel, to this.
See, first of all our books, there is a disclaimer that it's a viewpoint, it's a fiction. There is no scriptural authority. I may insist that it should be put in all my books. Not that I am not, but the fact is that I have not used much of a fiction in most. I have used the point of view literature. But still, what you consider as authentic need not be authentic to me. I usually ask this question if there is an audience there. A simple question: who is elder, Kartikeya or Ganesh?
Yeah.
This is an eternal debate.
Yeah.
In North,
And between
Kartikeya,
north and south, it's
North
totally,
and South, North,
yeah.
even that fundamental fact we are not,
Yeah.
we don't agree. And Kartikeya is a bachelor in North, and Ganesh is a bachelor in South. Kartikeya has
Right.
two wives in South. The
Right.
sense, oh, it's not that he keeps two wives there.
Right.
The belief is that Kartikeya has two wives.
Yeah, and
Whereas
then
Ganesh is a
when
bachelor.
you go to Indonesia and in Bali, you'll see Hanuman with a lot of apsaras around him, and he's
Correct.
not a, so it keeps on changing, right?
Yeah. So authenticity, you'll have to make audience understand that okay, this is this version I am using.
Yeah.
I'm authentic to that. So
Right.
when I used Asura, in Asura, Sita is the daughter of Brahman. I said it is a version which is prevalent in the south,
Right.
in some of the south and the Eastern Asia.
Right.
So
So
that much authenticity only you can give.
yes, with us also at Ramachitra Katha, because we are sort of seen as the custodians of these stories, and everybody having grown up on them, there is so much of credibility, the credibility promise that Ramachitra Katha carries. And when we try to tell new stories, like last year we released a book called Rama's Ring, which had the version of the Ramayana where the arrow that kills Ravan is fired by Sita and not by Ram. And we had a lot of a lot of people, talking, trolling us on social media, saying, "How can Amajita Katha publish something like this?" And it took, there is so much of. So how do you? I mean, have you all faced that? I mean, how do you deal with that?
Definitely. I have also done a lot of stuff like this. I have tried to change in the story as much as I can as well, because I truly feel that the readers are not reading our books because they want to read the authentic version of it. They're reading it because they want to read a fun, different kind of a version for it. Because if they want to read an authentic version of even ever whatever truer version out there, they can just go on Google and find out, right?
Yeah.
It's not, they don't have to pay 300, 400 rupees for it. So I feel what they're reading for is basically to have a good time. And I think that's where we draw the line, where basically we know that all of this connect on a good time, on a good read at the end of the day.
Right. Anand, so any thoughts from you on this?
See, that's what I said. No, authentic. See, when I'm doing television, I try to stick to typical versions, which is more popular because I write for Hindi TV, so which is prevalent in the Hindi belt.
Right.
But when I'm writing books, I draw more to my childhood, and I write based on the stories which I had heard in my childhood through the folk versions.
Right.
So there is a distinct change in how I write for television and how I write my books. But I give as far as possible, if somebody calls, I give them the source. I get a lot of mails saying that
And
how
I
dare
think
you write.
you're absolutely right. And even that's the rule that we also follow, that whatever we post, even on social media, put the source. That this is our source, and there are multiple sources possible, but it's important to say that this is what our source is, and that's really helped us a lot.
That's
in
the
this
only
because,
way to tackle it.
and I think because ours is also it's a living mythology, right? It is what you said at the very start. So yeah, Kevin, sorry, you were saying.
You know what I actually also feel is with mythology is that you don't have to be like, this is it, right? This is it.
Yeah.
This is the definite version. You have to be like, what if?
Yeah.
What if this could have happened? Like Rama's Ring, as you said, what if?
Yeah. What if?
Like, what if Sita shot it? You know? So I think the what if it's done in the most convincing way, in the most sensible way, I feel the what if can actually make or break your book. Because I have done, to be honest, I have done a lot of stuff which can be quite questionable. I've changed a lot of stories. I've changed a lot of characters. I mean, in one of them I showed that Hanuman had a son, even though he was not, he didn't. But but when I was researching about him, I got to know that in one of the, I think, which one was it? I forgot.
Indonesian Ramayana, Magaradhwaja.
Yeah. So he had a son, right? So that's how I connected it, and but I made it so convincing that it was like, it worked. So I think. I think that it's more about.
I think it's somewhere the balancing act, right, between the contemporary voice and balancing it with what the community at large kind of expects in terms of the reverence that they feel towards these stories, because there is reverence, right? Like, how can you do this, right? So that balancing act. But I feel that as a children's publisher, and I mean, Amachita Katha, we still see ourselves as primarily we are children, although we are read by everyone, but our target audience is the 8 to 14. And I think that, we look at it as a very important job that we have to do, to keep on presenting all the different versions, to keep on presenting different points of view, because that's the way we will have a sane society, right? If children grow up with this notion that this is possible, what if this happened, this was also possible, and then it makes you think. So I think that becomes kind of a service that mythology as a genre has to do for society in that
See,
sense.
that is how in traditional societies the stories were told. At least my childhood was like that. I was
Right.
exposed by my father or any storyteller who used to come to our temple. There are around 108 temples in my village.
Right.
So the people who used to come there, they used to perform multiple stories, multiple versions, multiple stories, and the discussions used to happen, saying that what is right. One of the never-ending debate is whether Kauravas are right or Pandavas are right, which has not been settled in this kind of
Yeah.
society.
Right.
So there is no surety that this is right, this is good, so they won. That's a very fairy tale Western kind of
Yes.
storytelling.
Yes.
Never
I absolutely
went
agree.
for that.
Yeah, and that is the beauty of these stories, and that's why I think they continue to remain alive, because there's so many layers to it and so much depth. Every time you get into a conversation, you'll open up some other, a layer which you hadn't experienced before. So another question I had is that, do you in your writing of mythology, have you tried to portray sort of a modern take on things, or because sometimes I know we face it at ACK, that we have said that, oh, this is a very outdated way, or this is regressive, or this is not in lines with what today's generation, the sensibilities of today's society, and we are making a few changes. For example, we say that in a lot of the way the wife addresses the husband, instead of saying my lord, we've started saying husband, or addressing even by name in certain cases, or the traditional notion of fairness and beauty, and we've tried to say that there was a line in one of the comics which said, oh, you must be so happy you have a fair daughter-in-law. So we've changed that fair word to wonderful daughter-in-law. Because we keep on hearing from parents, from teachers, that we don't want girls who are darker skin to feel less than, because of this is what it says in the book. So is there anything that you feel that you feel the need to do this, or you have done it, or is there any cheeky take that you have taken on anything, any story that you grew up with? The
My
fun stuff.
stories are all contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
The setting might be Lanka, but what I mean is India,
Hmm.
present day India. So
Hmm.
those who can read between the line, they can know what character I mean. When I'm talking about Mahishmati of Bahubali, my book,
Yes.
not a film. It is today's India I'm talking about.
Yes.
The people are today's people, actually.
Hmm.
Story world might be different. So I have
Right.
always been conscious of that. There is a clear underlying political tone also to it, what I am writing.
Hmm.
Some sort of cynicism also is there in my.
And if authors don't do that, who will do that, right?
Ah.
It's it is our, we are born to do that. It is our duty and dharma to do that. Yeah. To
And the obsession about fairness, I think it's a problem of the language too. English
yes.
is not a language of this weather,
Yeah.
actually. So even the terms fair is
Hmm.
equated not only to the skin tone, it is also equated to righteousness.
True.
Whereas the you are so fair can mean
Yeah.
both things. No?
Correct. Correct. Of course.
Whereas our weather, even what we do, we don't blush actually. Most
Yeah.
of it cannot
Absolutely. Yeah.
blush. When you are happy, you grow darker actually.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
my favorite example is that, every single Western song will talk about it's a bright sunshining day and the sun
Yeah.
is out and the dark clouds have gone away. And for us, it's Zindagi Dhoop Tum Ghana Chaya, right? That is what is romantic to us, that life is harsh sunlight and you are the shade. You are the shade of the banyan tree that I feel.
Rain is
So,
the most romantic thing.
absolutely.
For in English, rain is about misery. For us,
Absolutely.
rain is the most romantic
And we
thing.
grew up with rain, rain, go away, come again another day, right? Whereas actually we have an entire Malhar Rag dedicated to try to welcome the rain in. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you say, Kevin? What is the cheeky things, or what is the things that you have done which have turned things around, or uh,
First of all, apologies to my friend. I think he just vanished in the back. But so, but I think one of the most. Oh, sorry. Yes.
that's fine.
So yeah, yeah. So Anand sir is like, yes.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. So, but yeah, the cheeky thing, I was trying to remember, but I couldn't like. I don't think so. I did anything cheeky in a modern relevant sense. I just write what I really like. I mean, so Kripacharya, for instance, from Mahabharata, what I've tried to do is in my book in Kalki trilogy, what I've done is he says mate, like a pirate, like hey mate, what's up? You know.
Okay.
So the thing is, I mean, not what's up and everything, but like mate. So why I did it was because I just didn't. So people asked me a lot of people read Kalki and they're like, why did you write like this? Why did you write mate? I mean, Kripacharya is saying mate. Why are you mad? He's a great guru. I mean, I said because the exact point that I didn't want you to take the book seriously. It's a fun book. It's an enjoyable book. I don't want to take it. I don't want you to take it seriously. I wanted to enjoy it, right? So this was one of those things where I just wanted to play around with.
Yeah.
So that's how I did. And in terms of showing a lot of I try to make my book as much woman centric as well, right? So I think that's where I also bring a lot of relevant subjects from the modern times to the books, you know.
Right. Some examples of. I'm very interested to know how women are, being portrayed in your books.
What I do basically is that I try to make sure that I don't write them as how each woman. I mean, how should I say this? Like, I don't want to try to show that they're trying to be, masculine for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what happens mostly when you see it, right? That they're like
Right.
super powerful and super warrior types, and like
Yeah.
they're trying to be ultra masculine for no reason whatsoever, right? Just because we want to show them powerful, right? I mean, we can show them powerful in the most feminine way as well. It doesn't have to be that way,
Absolutely.
right? So I try to write them as characters. I don't try to see what gender
Is
I
it
am.
male or is it female? Right. Just
Female as well,
character.
right? And I get
Correct.
like
Absolutely.
questioned a lot because the thing is
Yeah.
that they're like, your women characters are so fascinating, so interesting. Why are they so interesting? Is because I treat them like characters. I don't treat them as like male or female type,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at ACK2, I think we try to do the same. The approach is more just to say that in the stories to show the women having some agency over their lives, or to show the sense of them again as a character doing something, right? They're not just props in the scene. So that I think is a very conscious decision that, okay, how do we show them having more agency? Because for in our case, we realize that, while yours is a fun take, so it's taken in a fun manner. But in our case, it is being used at schools, it is being used as textbooks. So, it's an impressionable age, and it is inspiring. It is playing that role of educating and inspiring as well. So putting across that the correct image becomes very important.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So it is. We do have now about 10 minutes left. So I have thought of to make it fun, because we're talking about fun. We're going to play a game. Okay.
All right.
There were supposed to be 3 people here, but we have 2 of you, so we have a game. It's a word association game. I'm going to name a word which is a quality. Okay, and you have to tell me the first mythological character that comes to mind. It could be from something you've read, it could be a character you've created, and if you want, you can explain why that character came to mind. Yeah,
wow, that's good. That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay, and since I'm the moderator of this discussion, I get to give points. Okay, that is my special privilege. Okay,
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so the first word is strength.
So are we doing like one by one? Like how's it going?
No,
Like
both of you. What is the first character that comes to like?
Shiva.
Sorry.
Shiva.
And for you, Anand? Sita. Okay, interesting. Victory. Now you go first.
What do you say? Let's go like this. Like you say, I say.
Yeah. Okay, it'll go. Let me faster. Victory.
Okay. Mystery.
Victory, as in success. Victory.
Victory as in success.
Yeah.
Once again, Ravan.
Okay, and Kevin.
Krishna.
Okay. Next word is compassion. Kevin.
Lakshman.
Lakshman. Okay, why would you say Lakshman?
I don't know. He was a very compassionate person.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never read about him. He's like,
You should ask Shurpanaga about it.
I don't know.
Anand, for you, compassion.
For me, compassion is always karma.
Okay. Integrity. Anand, you go first.
Integrity. Faith.
Faith.
Faith. Okay. Shit. That's a tough one.
Hanuman.
Hanuman.
Hanuman is a really good example, I think.
Good example. Faith. Faith, yeah, Andaka. And you can ask me why. Because he had faith that he could get Parvati. So
Okay. I think both very good answers. You guys are evenly tied. Okay. So the chocolate hamper is coming to both of you.
Hey.
Okay. Okay. Next question. One bucket list story that you wish
I think
to
I
tell.
lost.
Sorry, can you hear me, Anand?
Yeah, I think in between some problem had happened. For a minute I lost. Now
So
it's
all
back.
you missed was that you're getting a chocolate hamper, and so is Kevin. So both were evenly, evenly poised. Okay, so one bucket list story from Indian mythology that you definitely want to tell in this lifetime.
Me, one is I want to tell the Shiva Puran
Okay.
in my own way. Devi Bhagavatam in my own way rather,
Okay.
more than Shiva Puran. That's one thing. Second thing, I want to do the Vikram Vedal in my own way.
Oh wow, that will be amazing.
Writing on Vikram Vital, by the way, sir. So, I mean,
Like we said, it's open source. You can have as many versions as you want. So
Yeah.
go for it. Okay,
yeah.
that's
So, I think I wrote my dream story, to be honest. My Sinbad. I wrote on Sinbad. So, I always wanted to write on a character like Sinbad and wanted to make it really, really good. So I think I did. I think I got it. But if I could think of more, I think I'm writing that now also for Audible on Krishna, Last Days, the Mausala Parva episode. Like that's the very interesting episode I feel when it comes to Krishna's life.
right. So Anand, we have actually released the Shiv Puran. It's called Mahadev. It's in 5 parts. It's available on the. Sorry, it sounds like a plug, but it's come out very beautifully. So you must please check it out. It's on the Amachitra Katha app. I'll send you a link
Ooh.
after this. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
beautiful, and it's been read like a whole lot of times as well. So it's doing well.
Great.
Okay, so talking of Amachitra Katha, your favorite Amachitra Katha?
Shivaji.
Shivaji. Okay,
I love to read history, so I'm a history student. So.
right. Okay, and why particularly that one? Any
I don't know.
reason?
I was always very fascinated with the historicity when it comes to Shivaji, right? And written so simply because I as much as I love history, I really don't want to go into the deep sources and everything, right?
Right.
So I want to just get the foundation right, and then I want to go deeper. So I think that's where Amachitra Katha's Shivaji, first the artwork plus everything, it just came together really well for me personally. So I think that's where I feel it was good. That was also one of the first few books that I read of Amachitra Katha. So I think that also has a very nostalgic notion behind it.
Right.
So yeah.
Good memories.
Yeah.
What about you, Anand? Favorite?
I use the Mahabharata collection, the 3 book.
Yeah.
Yes.
That I use it as my quick reference actually.
What if you forget a loophole and everything? You can always go back to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So before we close, I'd just like both of you to have any closing remarks on the business of mythology, on writing mythology, and the relevance for, like, why should people read mythology? What is it that you think will actually people benefit from reading?
I think one of the greatest thing about Indian Puranas is that at any point of life, whether you are a male or a female or transgender or whatever you are, whatever age you are, if you look into our Puranas, you will find a character similar to you, who have faced the problems which you have faced.
Yeah.
It's so real life that is why this gets again and again reborn again and again and changed again and again.
And keeps remaining relevant, right?
Yeah, it's still remaining relevant. So what we are doing, at least my thing, if I say what I have done is I tried to bring out the multiple versions. So Kevin says he writes for fun. I wrote with a mission, frankly. I wanted to bring the multiple versions of Ramayana and Mahabharata up to the public, the wider, younger audience. Because I thought that what happened in television, what it does, it gives a monochromatic view. It goes with the lowest common denominator.
Right.
It goes with the most popular version. It doesn't have the space to bring other versions.
Correct.
So one thing which I am doing for Audible, like Kevin, I was telling is I am talking about the entire versions of Ramayana,
Oh wow.
not as a scholarly manner, but like how an orator, how a storyteller will do. Okay,
Sounds fascinating. Yeah, that sounds really good.
this event in this Ramayana, Tulsidas Ramayana, it's like this Kamba Ramayana, but it is told like this.
Or
But
to be able to compare it like that.
compare it like, and this is the lesson you can draw. This is why perhaps
How
Tulsidas
interesting.
is
Yeah, that's
told
fascinating.
like Kambar has told like this. So it's a compilation of around almost whatever I have read or come across. As a reference, just like it is my reference book from my notes which I have spoken around 15, 16 hours. It should be coming soon.
Right.
So idea was to make it more easier for people to read, and so my books I have tried not to add characters which are not there much. All are available in some version or other. I have not added much of a fiction. I'm not saying it is authentic, but whatever I used, all the incidents in my Vanara, in my Ajaya, these are available as folktales somewhere or other. And I have given them voices in English, how they speak, how they act, a contemporary thing.
Right.
But it is more of a something is there. Somebody else I can say, okay, this is from this Purana, this version, this is there, which I have given. Less of it has got less of imagination, which I use for my other kind of work like Bahubali. It's total imagination. Than more of this thing. So I think people can find out there are multiple versions, like in a different way what SEK is doing. I can find out, okay, this could also be happen. This could be also a version.
Right.
That's all mainly. So it will help people, I believe, to tackle their issues in life, provided they are willing to look for answers and have an open mind to accept different kind of versions.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Kevin, what about you?
When it comes to relevance and all I can say is that
Entertainment. Right? It's
yeah, I don't want to lie and everything, and it's a great.
It's a very important thing, right? After this pandemic we've been through, we all realize the importance of.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things is that you should read it only for the sake of that we are, as authors, as storytellers, are getting that sort of a freedom to experiment and to see a different, show a different kind of storytelling in the current scenario, in the current society, in the current everything, right? So just for the fact that we're getting a breather for what should be reading till the time, I hope no one curbs us. So
no, that's the beauty of being Indian, right? And our society. So
yes, exactly.
So I think that it's a very exciting time to be writing mythology, to be retelling mythology, because we have the perfect climate. We have authors like both of you, and we still have our comic books as well, telling stories in different ways. And there are so many versions and so much food for thought, and so much. It is so enriching what is out there right now. Sometimes, like Anand says, you have a question and you'll find an answer. And sometimes you go in confidently with answers and you find questions which you haven't thought of. So both open up through retelling of our ancient stories. And I think we are truly a very, very lucky generation to be sitting where we are, right? On the cusp of having this amazing past and looking at the future of where India is headed. Yeah. So on that note, I think we're out of time. So I'd just like to thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
And it was a lovely discussion, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye.